All right, welcome to the Explainer. This week in tech, a number popped up that is so big, it's almost, well, it's hard to even wrap your head around it. We're going to break that down, plus all the other huge Apple news you need to know.
Yeah, you're seeing that right. $5 trillion. I mean, let's put that in perspective for a second. That's more than the entire economy of most countries on the planet. The company? NVIDIA. And they just became the first in history to hit that valuation, all thanks to this absolute explosion in AI. Their GPUs, their powerful chips, they're basically the engine running this whole AI revolution, and man, is it paying off. So while NVIDIA is just riding this incredible AI wave to the moon, Apple's getting ready to make its own big splash. They're laying the groundwork for some of the biggest AI-driven changes we've seen from them in, well, maybe ever. Okay, so here's what's on the docket today. We're going to kick things off with that big new iOS update. Then we'll peek into the future of Apple hardware. After that, we'll see how Apple's playing in the wider tech world, and we'll finish up with a few other stories you might have missed. Sound good? Let's jump in. All right, first up, software. Apple just dropped the first beta for iOS 26.2, and honestly, it's packed with some really big changes. And these changes, they give us some major clues about where the whole company is heading. So when you boil it all down, this update really hits four key things. You've got alternate app stores, which is huge. Then there are new ways to customize your lock screen, these new urgent reminders, and a big expansion for live translation. Let's break down what each of these actually means for you. Okay, the first one is a really big deal. We're talking about a structural shift. Because of new laws in Japan, Apple is basically being forced to open up its famous walled garden, that super tightly controlled ecosystem. Starting in December 2025, iPhone users in Japan will be able to install other app stores. And guess who's already lining up? Yep, Epic Games. They're planning to bring Fortnite back. Next up, a little something for everyone who loves to tweak their phone's look. You're getting way more control over your lock screen. There's this new thing called the liquid glass slider that lets you mess with the clock's transparency. You can make it crystal clear or give it this cool frosted glass look. It's a small touch, for sure, but it's one people have been asking for. The Reminders app is getting a pretty powerful upgrade too. Now you can flag any reminder that has a specific time as urgent. And what that does is it turns it into a full-screen, can't-miss alarm. It's actually a really simple idea, but super effective for making sure you never forget that critical task again. Okay, so that's the software that's just around the corner, but what about the shiny new hardware it's going to run on? Well, there are some pretty juicy rumors floating around about Apple's next generation of Deer. Yeah, if we look way ahead to 2026, leaks are suggesting that Apple is playing around with some very different colors for the iPhone 18 Pro. We're talking burgundy, a deep brown, and even purple. But here's the catch. The reports all say that only one of these is actually going to make it to the final product. So place your bets now. But maybe the biggest hardware rumor out there isn't about the super expensive stuff. It's about the other end of the spectrum. For years, everyone's been asking the same question. Is Apple ever going to make a truly budget-friendly MacBook? One that can actually take on Chromebooks? Well, the answer might finally be yes. And the way they might pull off that sub-$1,000 price tag is honestly fascinating. The rumor is they'd use an iPhone chip, the A18 Pro, instead of the more expensive M-series chips you find in a MacBook Air. I mean, this would be a direct shot at the education market, at the budget Windows laptops. Basically, a direct shot at Chromebooks. This could completely reshape the entire market for affordable laptops. It's a huge what if. But hey, don't worry, Pro users. Apple hasn't forgotten about you. Not at all. Reports are also pointing to the next generation of Apple's most powerful chip, the M5 Ultra. It's apparently on track for a release in mid to late 2026 for the super-powered Mac Studio and Mac Pro. All right, so we've looked at Apple's own plans for software and hardware, but Apple doesn't exist in a bubble, right? So how is it dealing with the rest of the tech world? A couple of recent things, from long-awaited apps to some pretty surprising partnerships, tell a really interesting story. First, something that users have been practically begging for years. It's finally here. WhatsApp is now officially a real native app on the Apple Watch. That means you can read your messages, look at photos, and send voice notes all right from your wrist. Finally! But this next one, this is huge. It's a massive, massive strategic shift for Siri. The next big version, which we're expecting around March 2026, is reportedly going to be powered by a custom version of, wait for it, Google's Gemini AI. Now, Apple will still control the interface, how it looks and feels, but the actual brains behind the operation, that'll be Google. This is a massive deal, and it just goes to show you how intense this AI race has become.
So even with all these big software moves, it's not all perfect news. On the hardware side of things, some of the first people to get the new AirPods Pro 3 are reporting a problem. They're hearing this persistent hissing sound when active noise cancellation is turned on. The very feature that's supposed to block out background noise. Right now, it's not clear if it's a hardware problem or just a software bug they can fix.
Okay, and to wrap things up, let's hit a couple of other quick stories that kind of put everything we've talked about into a bigger context.
In a move that honestly makes life a lot easier, Apple has finally launched a full-blown web version of the App Store. Before, you could only really look at individual app pages. Now you can browse the entire catalog for iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple Watch, all of it, from one central website. It makes the whole ecosystem feel just a little more open. And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started, the money. This chart just puts NVIDIA's insane rise into perspective. Hitting $5 trillion, it literally puts them in a league of their own, way ahead of giants like Apple and Microsoft. It is crystal clear that the AI race is completely rewriting the rules of who's on top in big tech. So, from $5 trillion companies to AI being baked into literally everything, you have to ask, where is all this going? It's so easy to get caught up in the giant numbers and all the new features, right? But maybe the real question we should be asking is this: is all of this tech actually making our lives better or just more complicated? It's definitely something to think about as Apple, NVIDIA, and Google keep building this wild AI-powered future for all of us.